All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. So today we are going to be looking at a quote unquote stolen election in 1824. We're going to analyze that. And then we're going to examine whether the president cabinet positions should be given out or should they be earned. Okay, and then we're going to create an argument on whether the Cherokee Rose story is true or not. That's something at the very, very end. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to your warm-up picture. All right, so here it is. First question asks you basically what's happening here. All right, analyze the picture. What do you see? What's going on here? The second question asks you, what do you notice about these people? What do they have in common? Okay, so I want you guys to, depending on your device, again, if you have a phone, it might be a little hard for you to see the details. But try your best, okay? And if you do have a bigger device, Chromebook, laptop, things like that, um, you should be able to see the image a lot better, okay? So write your responses, pause the video, okay, because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. So the election of 1824 is considered one of the stolen election because the thing is, just like nowadays, when a president is elected, they have to reach a certain number of the electoral college votes in order to be declared a winner. In this case, nobody got it. The four people running: Andrew Jackson, John Quincy Adams, William Crawford, and Henry Clay. All right. Andrew Jackson's known as the hero of 1812. John Quincy Adams is known as he's served other positions before, but he's mainly known as the son of the second president. And then Crawford's one of those politicians. But Henry Clay is the leader in the House of Representatives. Okay. Now, the thing is, under the Constitution, when there is no winner, they basically let the House of Representatives pick. Thing is going to be on Jackson, Adams, and Crawford. Um, Clay was not on that ballot, and what ends up happening is John Quincy Adams wins, and Henry Clay. Once Adams is president, he makes Clay his Secretary of State. Now the thing is, Andrew Jackson, he won the popular vote, as you can see from the numbers. His popular vote was higher. He won more electoral college points, but he still lost the presidency. And he was like, "This is an outrage." There was some deal went on between Adams and Clay. Why would he make him his Secretary of State? Well, if you look at the main positions on the graph thing right here, Adams and Clay basically agree on the same things: the support of tariffs and supporting spending on the railroads and canals to promote businesses. They both had that in common. But again, Andrew Jackson is saying no, no. There was an agreement made because again, Clay, when they voted for who's going to be a president, Clay was the head. And because he was ahead, he was able to maneuver and talk to people to basically convince them to vote for Adams over me. And then his reward for doing that is that Clay was made Secretary of State. Again, there's no evidence that points to corruption. There's no evidence that says, yes, Adams made this deal with Clay, things like that. There's no testimony from anyone who's actually heard them, saw them, or things like that. So some people see this as like, hey, Jackson just can't take an L. And then there's some people who see this as, no, 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 there's too much coincidence going on. Maybe a deal was made. There was a corruption, you know. So which one's the truth? Who knows? Okay. But thing is, Jackson gets these people to support him. They're following him. They're like, yeah, I believe the same thing Jackson does. That he says, the people deserve more rights. The government should be weaker. You know, that the people rights should trample over the government's rights over us and things like that. Excuse me. So again, he believes that the government should be weak, and these are called the Democratic Republicans. Now, on the flip side, there's a new group. Again, they would be called the Federalists back in the day, but now they changed their name to National Republicans, aka the Whig Party. Okay, so as time goes on, you're going to see more of these political parties change their name from one thing to another to another to another. Okay, so here's my first question to you. Based off what you've learned so far, do you believe there was a bargain made between Clay and Adams? Do you think there really was an agreement made, or do you think it's just, hey, they believe the same things? Adams wanted somebody in his cabinet who was experienced, who has leadership position, and has basically the same views as he does in where our country should be going. So what do you think? Was there a bargain made, or is it like, like, hey, there's too many coincidences, so there had to be a bargain, right? Which one do you believe? Right. So write your response, pause the video while we're moving on in three, two, one. So here's the thing, the voting population actually really exploded. People realize that, it is vital, it is important that your vote is out there, that you do go out and vote. So the population went from 355,000 people voting to 1.13 million people, almost like a 300% increase. Okay. Now, the next election, Andrew Jackson wins. Okay. And then this is where he basically does a spoil system. The spoil system is when the new presidents come in and they're like, okay, and you guys served the other president. I don't care if you're the best in your field, you're the best, whatever. No, you're fired. I'm going to put in people I want, people who are my political party, who helped me, who supported me. I'm going to put them in their position. Does this still go on? Yes, absolutely. There are some people who are put into political appointments who have no idea what they're doing, but they're put there because, hey, they supported this particular president from the get-go, and as the reward for helping them out, you get this cushy government job. Um, So that's what Jackson did, you know. And does every president do this? Uh, yeah, some do, some don't. Some do like for a bunch of stuff, but some just realize, hey, this guy is really good. Whether it's the Secretary of the Treasury, Interior, or whatever. Sometimes these guys are really, really good at their job, and they'll be like, you know what? I want you to stay on. You know. I want you to stay on because you're like the best in this particular field. So there you go. All right. The caucus system is replaced with the national nominating convention. So this is the national nominating convention. This is where all the states come in. They basically say, we from North Carolina, the delegates of North Carolina, or wherever, say that we want so and so to be president. We want them to represent us and political party for president of the United States. Okay, this still goes on to this day. Okay, now the thing is, Jackson has an issue with England. Okay, and the thing is, he's going to raise a tariff on them. Okay, a tariff is a tax, and basically what that does is, let's say a car from Japan costs 80,000. An American car costs 100,000. What the tariff does is it's put on extra tax so that the foreign car, the Japanese car, is now at 120, and the American still stays at 100. Chances are people are going to buy that 100,000 one because this one is too high. The price is way too high. So they'll buy the American one. Um, at this time, the northern states loved the tariff. They're like, heck yeah, people are going to buy our stuff instead of buying stuff from England and France and stuff like that. They're going to be buying from us. The southern people, they hated this. They hated this idea of having a tariff on England because then England's going to put a tariff on us. This is what they always do. You put a tariff on us, we're going to put a tariff on you, and then they're going to stop buying stuff from the South because, again, the South was selling things to England and France and Spain and Portugal. So now that they got cut off basically from England, England's no longer buying from them, they're losing money. The state of South Carolina basically said, we are going to leave this country. We're going to secede from it. That's what it means. Secede means to separate. Now, again, there's nothing legally holding us together. Okay? If a state wants to leave, they can leave. They want to join back, there's a process. But the thing is, if you want to leave, you can. Now, this was Vice President John C. Calhoun. He basically talks about the nullification, which basically means states make up nations. All right? We are the United States. That's how we get our name, United States. And says that the states can decide to find laws null and void. Okay? So the states decide whether they're going to make something legal or illegal. The states had that power under the 10th Amendment. Okay? No, Ninth Amendment. My bad. Sorry about that. The Ninth Amendment, saying, the state has the power that the government doesn't. If the government wants to put a law down that every state has to follow, it has to be an amendment. So some states say this is legal, this isn't. Okay? And then comes this argument between Robert Hayes and Daniel Webster. Okay? And they basically say, unions is a voluntary association. We decide to be united, the states. We decide to come together. Robert Hayes says this: when it comes to our country, it should be our personal freedoms first, and then our loyalty and union connection second. So our freedoms should always come first above everything else. Even our loyalty and connection as a country, that should be second. Your personal freedom should be first. Webster goes on to say, no, 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 no. Liberty, which is our freedom, and our union, the thing that keeps us together, they should be now and forever one and inseparable. They should be together. They should not one be over the other, or vice versa. They should be even. Should not look at, well, my personal freedom goes here, and everything else about my patriotism, my loyalty, things like that should be second. Okay? So hopefully you get that understanding. That's what they're saying. Hayes, your freedom comes first, everything else is second. And Webster saying, no, no, no. Everything should be equal. Your freedom, your loyalty to the country, everything should be just the same, not one above the other. Now, this takes us to question number 2. Who do you agree with, Hayes or Webster, and why? Which one do you feel, yes, that is true? I believe that one over the other one. And why did you choose that one over the other one? Okay? So, if you forgot which one said which, go back to the notes, go rewind the video a little bit, and listen, then respond, okay? All right, so we're moving on, though, in 3, 2, 1. So, President Jackson had this thing to have, like, again, he has a history of not really having good relations with the Native Americans. And as president, he feels, hey, we need to move them away from their territory. We need to take them to a secure area in Oklahoma. That'll be the Native American territory. And he would say, oh, we're doing this to ensure their survival. It's not about their survival. Specifically, the Cherokees. They're being moved not because of their survival. There's actually something else. We're going to get to that in a little bit later. Um, but yeah, they basically want to remove all the natives from their homeland to another territory. Now, the Cherokees, they did fight back. They fought back two ways. One way was the legal way. They basically said that their territorial rights were being violated. There were treaties signed. There was agreements made by state and the federal government. And they went to court on this. There was two court cases, the Cherokee Nation versus Georgia and Worcester Kester versus Georgia in 1832. And in both cases, the courts were like, okay, yeah, you are right, Native Americans. You guys are right. Even the Supreme Court basically said, yes, the Native Americans cannot be moved. This does violate their agreement with our nations, with these states, and things like that. President Jackson famously was told, hey, this is what the court said about the Indian Removal Act. And Jackson said, Marshall, which is the Chief Justice, has made his opinion. Let him enforce it. In other words, yeah, he said what he thought. Cool. Let's see him do something about it. What's he going to do? Nothing. I can do stuff. I have the power. I'm the president. And that's what he does. He ignores the courts and moves on with moving the Native Americans. Okay. Now, when it comes to the Cherokees, um, the men fought back. This was the other way they fought. So they tried the legal way. It worked, but it didn't work. So they tried fighting back against the troops that Martin Van Buren sent. That didn't work out too well for the Native American men because a lot of them got killed. So 2,000 died when they tried to round up the Cherokee. Another 2,000 died on the trail from starvation, disease, exposure to the elements, stuff like that. There's a story that the U.S. government put smallpox, a very contagious disease that spread very quickly and killed, that they put it on blankets. That is true. It did do that. This Trail of Tears is one of the dark stains in our history. And no matter how you slice it, it was just brutal. And it was very, just horrible in every which way possible. Okay. The white, red, and yellow lines represent different trails, different paths that they took. The blue represents the water trip that they take them on. Whether on boats, things like that, canoes, whatever it may be. Yeah, they took them down that path. So there's a story that came up, which I've heard it several ways, but they primarily had the same concept, and the story kind of somewhat the same for the most part. Um, Basically, what happened when the Cherokees were removed from their land, many of the people who were forced, because remember, the men fought back, a lot of the people who were still there who were forced to move were old people, sick people, women, and children. Okay. Thing is, the women were the ones who actually had the strength. They were the ones who took care of the sick and the old and the children. And they're going through that whole map, going around, through and through. Um, the old people, especially the kids, died from starvation and exposure and disease, from the smallpox and very little food that they could get, and they're out in the open, so they're constantly, getting wet. It's freezing, it's so hot, things like that. So what happens is the women start to their strength starts to fade. And what happens is they start crying. They're getting together, and it's just tears. What happens is then the elders basically prays to their God, saying, "Hey, our women are hurting. That they're going through so much. Please give them a sign of hope to bring up their spirits. Because they're the strong ones, and even they are breaking. You know." So the next day, where the women were crying, this rose appeared. You know, these roses appeared where they were, and this rose did give them hope and things like that. Now, here's the interesting thing about this story: the path you saw that on there, the Cherokee rose grows in the wild in that area. Okay, can you grow a Cherokee rose in your home and things like that? Sure, absolutely. You know, no problem. But in the wild, just out by itself, no maintenance and stuff like that, they will die. They will not flourish, you know. But they do in that part of the area where the Trail of Tears was. In the wild, they can survive, they can grow, they can things like that without being taken care of. Everywhere else in the country, they have to be taken care of. They have to be in a pot. They have to, things like that. But if you put them out in the open, just in the wild, they will die. Yeah, so that's a pretty interesting thing I found out. Now, what does the rose represent? So as you can see, there's 5 petals. That represents the 5 um, groups of the Cherokee Nation. Okay, the white represents the kind of like innocence, of the people. The gold, again, I was telling you guys about Jackson. There was a reason why he kicked out the Indians, especially the Cherokee. It's because there was gold on their territory. Some people, some white men found gold on their territory, and they were like, "Well, we want it. We need to mine that area. We need to get these natives out of here so we can get that gold." So that's what it represents, the gold, the greed of what was the one thing that made them get off their land. What made the president and the other white men, what made them kick them out of their land. The other thing about it, the rose, it has a lot of thorns. Strong, pointy thorns. And this is a symbolization of that hey, we're going to fight. We will fight back. Yeah, we may look pretty and stuff like that, but we will fight back. And that's what the rose, that's all its representations. Okay. So for question number 3, you're going to pick either the top question or bottom question, whichever one you feel you can answer better. Okay. The top one says, do you think that Jackson should be seen as a tyrant president for not listening to the court and continuing with the Indian Removal Act? So what do you think? Should he be seen as a tyrant, a bad president? Or should it, he'd be like, hey, you know what? The president should be able to do what they want. What do you think? The second question is, what's your thoughts on the Cherokee Rose story? Do you believe it's true? Why or why not? Okay, so pause the video, write your responses, but we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so now we've come to the exit ticket. The first question asks you, do you think the election of 1824 was stolen? No? Why? Why do you think that? If you say yes, why do you think that? Okay, so that's one question. The other question says, do you think the president should be allowed to appoint anyone they want for a certain position, or should that position be earned? So, like, say somebody wants to be the Secretary of War. Should that person be somebody who was in the military, somebody who's been in war and battles and things like that? Or should it be anyone the president feels should be there? Okay. Once you are finished with this warm up, this exit ticket question, you're done for the lesson, okay? Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed this lesson. Guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later, all right?